Tonight, we've got a United States Senator from Vermont joining us, and it's not Bernie. Senator Patrick Leahy is the Senate's president pro temp. He's the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, and he's the most senior member of the Senate. Senator Leahy, great to have you on the Young Turks.
It's very good to be with you. I appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Senator Leahy's written a book, The Road Taken, a memoir. I get it. I get the Frost reference. So Senator Leahy, there's so much to talk about. You entered the Senate in 1974 when you were 33 years old. Now, this many years later, it is very, very different. So I want to ask some specific questions about how different it is, including how I think money and corruption has changed it. Super curious to hear your take on that. But let me start broadly. What is the biggest difference in your mind between back then and today in the Senate?
Well, one of the reasons I wrote The Road Taken, I knew I was going to be retiring, but I want to give people some idea how it could be and how it is. When I came there, I was probably the only Democrat ever elected in Vermont's history to the Senate, and I came there actually kind of full of awe of the Senate, and I had people there who I saw people that worked together, Republicans and Democrats alike, and I thought that's the way it always would be. I was invited on trips as a junior most member of the Senate with delegations, an equal number of Democrats and Republicans, from the most junior to the leadership members. And I saw on those trips how they would talk to each other and get things done. That's not the way it is now. Now it's polarized. It's not, people don't take advantage of the fact it's a 6-year term. They're more concerned about what's the next news cycle in 6 minutes or 6 hours.
Yeah, and what do you think, in your opinion, is the main thing that contributed to making that happen?
I think a lot of it began at the time when Newt Gingrich became speaker and said it's going to be all one party. If a party's in control, they've got to do everything and the others are going to just follow along. Some of his members then became senators and thought they should be the same way. What I say is we're a nation of 325 million Americans. We only have 100 senators. We ought to be thinking of all America. We ought to be thinking of what are the values of our country. But we have seen such a heavy influence of single issue groups from either the right or the left, enormous amounts of money that come in, and you don't speak about issues, you just have attacks on your opponent. I've never run a negative ad, and I've become the only Democrat ever elected in Vermont. It's paid off, but I realize some other states that might not work. But if we would get back to a time when we actually have debates, talk about the issues, and then go back to the Senate and work together to actually accomplish things, the whole country would be better off.
So you mentioned money there. You are the last remaining senator, as far as I know, from what I call the pre-bribery era. So in 1976, Buckley v. Baleo, and then 1978, Bellotti, were two Supreme Court decisions that allowed basically unlimited money to flow into politics. Citizens United, in a sense, shot a dead horse. And so do you remember the era before people were allowed to give tons and tons of cash to politicians?
I do, and I think Citizens United was one of the most damaging things the court could do. And I think it damaged the whole democratic process. They relied on how much money, which single issue or special interest groups you could get on your side. That's not democracy. And it is getting even worse. We've seen the enormous amount of money that poured in to pick Supreme Court justices that these special interest people wanted, and it's paying off for them. So that diminishes the respect that people have had in both parties for the Supreme Court. Certainly it's diminished the respect Americans have for the House of Representatives and the US Senate. That is going to hurt all of us in the long run, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. If the individual is not as important as the big money groups, we're all hurting.
So, Senator Leahy, to your point, there was just the news that there was a 1.6 billion, not million, $1.6 billion contribution from a right-wing funder to the Federalist Society. So he thought they did a pretty good job of purchasing the Supreme Court, and they should keep on buying. So this is an open auction, and the Republicans have always been the party of big business. On the social issues, Democrats and Republicans flipped, but on economic issues, they've always been for big business. They've always been for the wealthy. But Tony Coelho, back in 1978, after those decisions, decided to make the Democratic Party in favor of big business as well. And it seems to have largely worked. So when you look around the Democratic Party now, do you see the effect of money corrupting within the party as well?
I think money corrupts. I also think the single issue groups on the right or the left corrupt, because there are very few things that can be considered just one issue, and yet that's what we're seeing. When I wrote my book, I put in the fact that I think my first campaign, this is the book, but my first campaign, Vermont was the only state in the union and never elected a Democrat, never elected anybody under 50. I was a 34-year-old outgoing prosecutor. And I think we were able to raise $80,000 or something like that for the campaign, borrowed another $25,000 to make it through. Those days are long gone. And that's a shame, because now huge amounts of money come in, huge number of negative ads, and I've never run a negative ad, but the negative ads come in and it turns everybody off on everybody. But Citizens United was one of the worst things ever happened to this country. And I think it's led to the lack of respect of the courts, everything else. I was a prosecutor, I was a trial lawyer. I'd walk into every courtroom and I'd say, whoever the judge is, whether they're appointed by a Republican or a Democrat, I assume they're going to be fair. Now you walk into the court and you say, what's the position of the Federalist Society? What's guiding this judge? That's going to hurt everybody in this country. It's going to hurt everybody, conservative and liberal.
Yeah, absolutely, because moneyed interests don't care about Republican or Democrat. They just care about their interest, and they're not interested in the American people.
And their interests are often not yours or mine or the average American. They want tax laws that favor them. The heck with you. They want environmental laws and trade laws, everything else that favor them. And it's probably going to be at your expense.
Yeah, so tell us the story of John Stennis, the Republican senator from Mississippi, or the senator from Mississippi back then, and how you guys disagreed on the Vietnam War and what happened, because I want to juxtapose it to how it is today.
Sure. Well, I had opposed the Vietnam War, even though at that time the majority of Vermonters supported the Vietnam War, and certainly our newspapers supported it. But I said I'd vote against it. I'd been there just a couple of months, and they were going to have a vote to reauthorize the war. I was against that, and they had 5 votes in a row. Each one lost by 1 vote, my vote. I'm the only Vermonter who ever voted against the war, even though we had several who spoke against it, but wouldn't vote to end it. Stennis obviously was a supporter of the war. He disagreed with me, but he said, okay, you followed your conscience. I respect that. Let's hope we might be together on something in the future.
Yeah, so he was a very conservative Democrat back in the day, and so yeah, and so does that ever happen anymore, where Republicans and Democrats, or just within the same party, people who really vehemently disagree get together and go, it's okay, you voted your conscience?
Not anywhere near enough. I try to invite senators of both parties into my office. As president pro tem, I have a nice office, a great view of the mall, especially in the evening around sunset time, for prayer hour and holy water. The holy water might be single malt or 12 years old, but we sit around and talk, and we find that across the political spectrum, we find often we have areas of agreement. I said, let's work on that, and that has helped. But there's nowhere near enough of it, and that's why I wrote my book. I'm hoping new senators will look at it, see the way it used to be, and how much better that was.
Yeah, so the book's called The Road Taken, and so you've seen the arc of the Democratic Party. You saw a young Bernie Sanders coming up, and now people are saying he's too old, right? But at the same time, they thought he was too liberal back then. They think he's too liberal now.
Bernie and I are about the same age. He did run against me the first time I ran as a third party candidate, but we became good friends. In fact, our son babysat his son so that he and I could go in and debate at one point. I mean, Vermont's a little bit different place. We don't hold grudges.
Okay, well, that's great, and that's a heartwarming story. That's the America we want to get back to, right? So, but
as America, we have to get back to it. If we don't get back to it, every one of us suffer, whether we're Republican or Democrat.
Yeah. So finally, throughout all those years, what do you make of the arc of the Democratic Party?
Well, the good part is the segregationists and whatnot who were part of the old guard in the Democratic Party are gone. I think we've become a more diverse party, but I think that we sometimes forget that talking about things is not as effective as actually getting something done. But I'd still rather be in the Democratic Party than the Republican Party.
Well, I think everybody can agree to that. All right, Senator Patrick Leahy, one of the longest serving senators in American history. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And everybody, make sure you check out the book, The Road Taken.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you again one of these days.
Would love to.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.